Life is a journey. We all make this journey, but we only get one chance at it. Do things, live life, be kind, try to find your purpose, try to make a difference in the world, even if it's a little difference.
Welcome, everybody, to the Warrior Podcast. I have a special guest today. His name is Dave Erfourth. He is an accomplished musician. He was a music teacher, now retired. He's an organist. He went to college for playing piano. He's going to share his hardships, which are going to be very interesting with alcoholism in particular. And we're going to just talk about his life. So with that, Mr. Dave, thank you for joining us on the Warrior Podcast.
Thank you for asking me. It's a privilege.
Yeah, and we had a nice little preemptive conversation about life and stuff, and found out we're very like-minded. And so let's start out with your beginnings, your parents, your family life as a youngster, and then we'll take it through.
I was born and raised in Rudyard, Michigan, on a farm with a small herd of dairy cows. I was born prematurely. The story is that some of the cows got loose, apparently, and my mom had to go chase them and bring them in, and that didn't help the process, and I popped out early. So
couldn't wait to get out.
They said my dad could hold me in his hand. I could sleep in a shoebox, but here I am.
Yeah, so and you're 76, and they didn't have the preemie technology back then.
I was born on the farm.
Wow.
At home, yeah.
That's awesome.
So.
And then tell me a little bit about the farm life. Were you literally shoveling shit? Or?
Well, I think my older brothers, I had two brothers, and 10 years older and 7 years older. I'm the baby of the family. I'm the war baby from 48. Dad came home and celebrated, and here I am.
Oh, wow.
That's my story. But my older brothers had to do the milking by hand and stuff, and I had a few chores in the house, like keep the wood box filled, a few things like that. But I was not old enough to be able to milk a cow yet. I had to go gather the cows at 4 o'clock, and that was a bad time because Howdy Doody was on.
A lot of viewers don't even know who Howdy Doody is, so the youngsters, go ahead and Google that one.
Check that one out. Yeah.
Okay, so how big was the town that you grew up in?
Rudyard probably had about 700, 800 people.
Oh, man.
Very small.
That's crazy. I have that many people in my subdivision where I live. So, and then tell me about school.
I went to Rudyard High School. We started out just as a school for the town, and then the air base came in, Kitchener Air Force Base, and that gave us a huge influx of students. And so like half the student body were base kids, we called them, and the rest were Rudyard town kids. And it was really a great mixture. We benefited, I think, from having these other students from different parts of the country and have traveled more than we did. Some of us had never been out of the UP from Rudyard. So.
And then, so being in a small town, like we're on location in Trout Lake, Michigan, everybody who does a podcast up here has come from a small town.
Yep.
And everybody knows everybody, correct?
Exactly. In fact, Trout Lake, the kids from Trout Lake came to Rudyard. They had to drive or ride a bus for 25 miles. Yeah. Yeah, in a small town, nothing's a secret.
When did you ignite your passion for music and like playing piano?
Well, I started piano lessons probably when I was about 8 years old. Took lessons through school, high school. Then I went to college. And of course, my parents said, well, we should maybe go into music. Well, of course, being a 20 or 17-year-old that thought I knew everything. So, no, I don't want to go into music because my parents wanted me to, so I didn't want to do the opposite. I thought maybe a park ranger or work something outdoors. But so I went to Sumi College, which was up in Hancock in the Upper Peninsula in the Keweenaw. And then because they had a great choir director. So I went there for the first year and got to be in the chorus of the choir, and actually got to direct a number at a spring concert. And after like the first semester, I thought, well, gee, maybe I should go into music. So I did, and I was maybe a semester behind, but I got caught up. Then I had to transfer to Northern because that director was retiring, and I spent 3 years at Northern and got a bachelor's degree in music education. piano major, voice minor. And then I taught for 26 years, K through 12, kindergartners, middle school, high school. First job was in Gladstone, Michigan, known as Happy Rock, for 3 years. And that was interesting because my chorus room was not even part of the high school building. It was a refurbished grocery store across the street. And so the kids had to cross the road to come get back to the high school. But that was my first job. And boy, you learn a lot those first couple of years.
So you taught all of those grades, right?
K through 12, all the elementary.
Was there a preference? Did you like the older kids better, the younger kids?
I enjoyed the older kids where I could do music and singing in 4-part, and etc. The little kids sometimes were just so much fun, though, too. They would call me, the kindergartners would call me Mr. Erfourth because they couldn't say my name. And they're just the joy of the little kids was a lot of fun, too.
Yeah.
So I really enjoyed the whole gamut. And junior high is another whole area that's fun if you can tap into their energy.
Yeah. So that's interesting that because usually teachers teach, one grade or whatever.
Exactly, yeah.
And I always marveled at the teachers who taught the little kids because I think you have to have more patience.
Oh, yes.
But then as they get older and they get attitudes and the defiance and the hormones, that's another whole thing. And you had the whole thing to deal with. So, and you had joy in that, correct?
Oh, I did. After Gladstone, I'd hoped to always get back to Rudyard because they had they didn't have a very qualified choral director in Rudyard at that time. And the choir wasn't very good. So I told the superintendent, principal, I said, I'd love to come back to Rudyard, see what I could do with the chorus. And the lady finally left. So I went back to Rudyard, and I don't even think I had a resume. I just got the job, period. And spent 23 years there. Then I built the choir from getting 3s at a festival to getting 1s.
What does that mean?
A 1 is a superior rating.
Oh, awesome.
A 3 is you need a lot of work. And it took me about 3 years to get the choir up to that quality. I had around 50, 60 in the high school choir. I had a small select group that you auditioned for called the Chorale. That was at 16 voices. I had a junior high chorus. So I was busy, and I had a community chorus, and which I started in Gladstone. Then I started one in Rudyard. And I also played in church for 50-some years, so life was busy.
So I want to rewind the tape a little bit here. You said 2 older brothers.
Yes.
And they were quite a bit older, so did you not have closeness because of that?
They were much closer to each other because they were only 3 years apart. I wasn't as close to them as I would like to have been because of the age difference.
And it's natural?
Absolutely. I think so.
There's a book called Birth Order, and it talks about there is a science to birth order.
Right.
And you probably grew up more like an only child because they were doing their own thing already, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So you get a little more attention, maybe develop a little more fast because you're more in an adult world.
And I was the baby of the family.
Right. And then tell me about your parents real quick, what your dad did and your mom and stuff.
My dad was a postmaster for a while. One of his jobs when he was also a laryngectomy. He got cancer of the voice box, and so he had the hole in his throat. And that was one job he could do at the post office and still communicate with the esophageal speech, I think it's called. Yeah, he didn't have a mechanical thing, but he spoke with the gas or the burps coming out. You can make. I wouldn't do it now; it's just kind of gross. But he could do that job at the post office, and back.
So you got that early then?
When I was in junior high, he was diagnosed with cancer.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and I remember that.
And then how long did he live on after that diagnosis?
He lived to be in his 80s.
Oh wow! What a blessing that was! Holy cow!
He was amazing. He with that. How he dealt with it. That job he had for a number of years, and then there was a political job, and then there was an election. The party changed from, say, Republican to Democrat. So he was ousted. They put in a Democrat. That's when it was a political position, which is sad because he could have done that job. Then he got disability, and my mom worked at home, but did some work at the school as a cleaning lady. They called a matron. I think they used that term back then. She would clean classrooms and stuff. So they. And they
then
worked the farm too originally when they were younger.
if I asked you, like, as a kid growing up with your parents, what would be one of your fondest memories? And it could be a repeating memory, like, Sunday dinners.
Oh, there were many. They loved to be outdoors. We had some very interesting canoe trips down the Carp
Oh,
River,
wow.
where we had a number of people going. One trip my folks went, I remember when they put their tent up, they put it up, not quite upside down, but on the side. And I said, I think, Mom, Dad, your tent's not correct. We can remember my mom swimming and just wading at the Carp River and one of the deep corners and stuff. And just fond memories like that, being outdoors.
And then did they plant your love of fishing, or did you do that on your own?
I got that from my brother. So
Nice.
yeah.
And we'll talk about the canoe trip later. And then how about some of the foods your mom used to make that you liked?
Well, of course, Finnish pasties. My mom was Finnish. She made good pasties.
What is a pasty?
It's a Cornish meal where it's in a pie crust with diced potatoes, rutabaga, onions, and hamburger.
Oh, wow.
And it's all folded up. And the Cornish, they worked in the mines, could take that and then eat it just in their hand. And then the Finnish adapted it, I shouldn't adopt it, and call them pasties.
Yeah. Well, I think every culture has a
Yeah.
dish like that, and they just call it something else, right? So
And good old meat and potatoes, meatloaf, stuff like that.
yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
So, all right. So we got a little bit of your foundation. Now, I wanted to go back to music because you mentioned politics with your dad. Now you're instructing choirs and stuff.
Right.
There had to be some kind of human nature politics in that too.
Not that I can really recall. Not that I can think of too much. I had
The reason why I say that is because you're a coach, right? You're basically a coach, and you're putting teams together, and
true.
usually
Yeah.
you get people who are unhappy with your selections and your decisions. That's what I meant by the politics.
I very seldom had any problems there. The administration was very supportive. I don't think I ever had a run-in with them or a disagreement. I don't ever recall any parents really saying, "Oh, gee."
Oh, good. You must have been a good negotiator.
I was, I think, pretty good, and I was a disciplinarian. I'm old school. Yeah, there were times I could slap the top of the piano quite loudly and storm out of the classroom and say, "When you folks are ready to work, let me know."
Oh, nice.
In my deep voice.
That wouldn't be accepted too much these
No,
days.
absolutely not.
They
It'd
take
be
you out
wrong.
in handcuffs if you did.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Okay, so you take me through kind of the evolution of your story. Your teaching, things are going along.
Okay.
Then what happens? You retired, or
Right. I taught for the 26 years, and I finally just ran out of steam because it takes so much energy if you want to be a good music teacher.
And how old were you when you retired?
48.
Wow, youngster.
The music problem, or not the problem, what drained me was I was going to festivals quite often. You had concerts. I had the church music to prepare. I had the community course music to take care of, and I even gave a few piano lessons. So I was busy constantly, and being successful at festivals, I always felt, once you've set the bar that high. One year we finally got a 2, and I was devastated. I thought, well, I better quit. I'm no good.
Because you got a 2 instead of a 1, right?
Exactly. Well, you don't always have the best basketball team, right?
True.
Every year it changes, though. I have to keep things in perspective. I finally just ran out of steam. So I bought 4 years from the state of Michigan. That gave me 30 years of retirement. I retired at 48, and I thought, well, I'm going to take now my piano skills and go into the nursing homes and play for them and do some nice volunteer work. And I also had a part-time job with a brochure business where you put these pamphlets in brochure racks and drive a truck around. It's a no-brainer job. I loved it. Did that for 10 years. And so I thought, well, I maybe will volunteer. Well, I didn't volunteer and do much. But then I retired from the brochure job, would have been in about 2006. And then I really thought, okay, now I got lots of time to volunteer and use my talents, right? Well, life is like a jigsaw puzzle. And there were some nice pieces in my puzzle up to this point in my life. And now a couple dark pieces were going to be part of the picture. And I made some bad choices. Now, I would drink occasionally at home while teaching, but I was so busy I didn't have time to drink a lot.
What did you drink?
I would like whiskey, highballs. Manhattans were one of my favorites. So then I started to maybe drink a little bit more often because I had so much time. And then when you realize that I've just had a Bloody Mary at 10 o'clock in the morning. And once I had that Bloody Mary, well, the second one I'll try. And then it was downhill from there. The day was shot. And I ended up not doing social things. I would make excuses not to go out. I became kind of a hermit. I didn't care about the yard, how the house looked. And I'm a single person, so I had to take care of things on my own. And I found that and I didn't go to bars. I didn't have a drinking crowd. I was a functioning alcoholic. I still played in church until I retired from that after 50-some years. I didn't do the community course. I finally retired that from in about 1998. But the drinking became, it consumed my life. And it was just a bad choice. And life is full of choices constantly. And that was one of my bad choices in life. And it took me with bad consequences. I would find that, okay, I'm going to buy a fifth of whiskey, and I'd start sipping on it. I really only had, Frank, one drink a day. But I just kept topping it off. So
I gotcha.
just one drink, and I could go through a fifth a day at the end, or I could use vodka and gin.
Was that what you were consistently doing at your peak? Was
Yes.
it about a fifth a day?
A fifth a day.
Now, were you getting drunk at that point, or
I would fall asleep in my chair or pass out of my chair. I never woke up with a hangover. Never got, you throw up on it. Just functioning alcoholic. I would probably have fallen maybe a few times. And finally, I think it was probably 2015, February. My niece is a nurse. I didn't realize it, but my family was concerned about me, my brother.
How many years had this been going on, do you think, consistently?
About 8, 9 years. I lost about 10 years of my life there.
So just to sidebar you, so when you're seeing your family for whatever, family function or whatever, you probably almost 100% of the time, you could at least smell booze on you or no.
I might have been drinking some, or I might have waited till after that was done and then go home and then drink.
Gotcha.
Then start. So that people don't know that I'm drinking. It's a secret.
Right.
Wow, small town.
Right.
Another story. My niece called me when I said, Uncle Dave, I'm coming over and I'm taking you into emergency. And she took me into the hospital at the Sioux. And I spent one day short of 2 weeks in there. And I had a doctor named Dr. Garlinghouse, was my main doctor. And when I went in, I could barely sign my name. I looked at some papers afterwards, and it was just a little tiny thing. I gave my niece, I think, power of attorney in case something happened. I had a few visitors at first. I couldn't even really converse with them. My family realized that we have to limit who's going to see him because he's in no shape.
What type of facility was this?
So Sault Ste. Marie, the War Memorial Hospital.
So
I went into emergency.
hospitalized. Oh, wow.
My liver functions were sky high. My ammonia levels was terrible. My kidneys were starting to shut down. And
Wow.
my relatives, I found out afterwards, were starting to plan what to do with my property. They thought I had cancer and a tumor, that I was going to be dead shortly. Well, by the grace of God and Dr. Garlinghouse, I'm here today. I thank God every day for that. As I said to some friends when I've talked about my story, we all have a purpose in life. The secret is to find out what that purpose is. But we're all here on this little planet flying through space for a reason. And I truly understand now that part of my purpose was, of course, to teach and share my love of music with people, and then go through this dark stage in my life to put me where I'm at today, which is now slightly over 9 years of total sobriety, which is a blessing. By the way, after I had that moment of clarity and went to rehab.
Well, let's talk about
Let's
the
go
moment of
back,
clarity.
yeah.
So you were in the
Yes.
hospital to stabilize your body, like
Correct.
so you would
correct.
survive.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Then I got home, right, and which was a miracle again. That was. I spent 2 weeks also in therapy at a nursing home for physical therapy. So I went in a wheelchair, but I walked out with a cane, so I could go home finally.
That's interesting to me. So
Learn how to walk.
What was happening to your body? Was it causing some
learning
kind
to,
of
to
nervous?
walk again and function and just physical therapy.
I had it really bad.
Yep, to get back into how to function and live sober. They had to come in and check the home and make sure I had things put in the bathroom, of course, for handicap. So after I got home, it was a few months before that moment of clarity, and that's when I then went to rehab for 31 days up in the Q&A.
What age were you approximately
I
here?
was 67 years old.
Holy cow.
Interesting. The first meeting, most of the guys, there was about 11 guys. It was just gentlemen. The main coach or main counselor was a Michigan State trooper, which was arrested by his own guys.
Wow.
And so he ended up in rehab and was a counselor there. And he's there all by himself, and he says, "Oh man, am I glad to see you? Finally, somebody older with some experience." So I work with these young whippersnappers that are there by court order and all this stuff, and don't really want to be there. Well, all the guys are out at a meeting, of course, and we call it a van. We call it the drug mobile. We'd load up in that and go to a AA meeting or an NA meeting. But anyway, they came back, so we're meeting in the commons area. Everybody introduces themselves, and I'm the new guy. And I found out I was the oldest one there. So I said, "Guys, I'm kind of like a geezer, or like the geese and the fawns." I said, "Look that one up on Google." And so that was my nickname. And I spent 31 days there, and I knew I had to do it or I'd be dead. So I was determined.
Was it, did you understand yourself enough to think that I made it through the hospitalization and the rehab, but the desire was still there?
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
So,
absolutely. I knew that this choice, two choices, to either not do it right and start drinking or to quit. And I had to make the right choice or I would not be alive.
So where in that process between the hospital and the rehab and the AA, where did you have your epiphany, when God spoke to you?
Right in the living room one evening at the computer. Came up and slapped me upside the head. And then the blessing from that, Frank, is what he said when he said he had some things for me to do. It's kind of interesting. The community course was dormant for a number of years, and a lady started it up again about maybe 15 years ago. And they had about 20 in the course, and they had to move. So there was nobody to direct it. And a couple of the choir members who were former students of mine, they're now in their 50s. Everybody was my student in a small town. And they said, "Oh, Dave, you got to come out of retirement and direct the chorus again." I said, "Oh, no, I've been there, done that, And then I start thinking, oh, okay, God, you said you had some things you wanted me to do. That was one of them. And I'll come back to that a little later. And the other one was in the Sioux, they have a Lutheran church that I used to sub at, and the organ died. They bought this beautiful new Allen Digital, about a $75,000 instrument. Sounds like a pipe organ. And they had an organist who had a master's degree. So, my gosh, she could play Bach and everything. She had to move. She was a Coast Guard wife. So the choir director there, who I know very well, said, "Oh, Dave, you got to come in and play for us. We have no organist." I said, "No, I'm retired, been there, done that for 50-some years." Well, I said, "Oh, okay, I'll come in and I'll look at it." I can't play the pedals. I have neuropathy, but maybe I could try. So, Frank, I'm all by myself in the church. There's only a light over the organ. And I grab a hymnal. I said, "Well, okay, I'll try this." It's very intimidating. It's like a real pipe organ, and I've never played. And I randomly open up the hymnal, and the hymn is "Day by Day." So I'm sitting at the organ, and I started to play it, and I started to read the words. I looked up, and So God, you got me again. When you said you had some things you wanted me to do, you weren't kidding. That has been such a joy in my life. Sure, they pay me. I should pay them. I get to play in this beautiful church on this incredible instrument. The music, when I go in and practice, is therapy for me. I'm in heaven. They love my playing. I make mistakes. They're human mistakes. I play them with feeling. And it's another family. And part of that, again, back to the things that God had me to do. I have that family. I have another church family in Red Jet. I have an AA family. I am so blessed. Then the community chorus. When I went back, since I had started the group many, many years ago, and I went back and I took over again, and that was about 6, 7 years ago, whatever. And that group brings me so much joy because I think it's almost the pinnacle of my career as a teacher. I'm now working again with adult voices, and now that group, I have a small group that I have handpicked, and that was like my high school chorale. No, I say it's like the high school chorale on steroids, adult voices, and that small group just is such a blessing too because I can throw music, they devour music, like a Pac-Man little thing used to devour things, and they bring me to tears for all the right reasons. And I think, God, boy, I am one lucky person. And I thank God every day with gratitude. Nothing is guaranteed. Every day is a blessing. And I guess so much out of that choral family. And we make some beautiful music. And I never would have ever imagined that I would begin playing the organ or directing a chorus. Life is good.
Let's dig in here with faith, because this is very intriguing to me. I was very faithful and prayed a lot, especially through childhood, because that's where I had my worst trials. And then as I became older, and I have an engineering scientific mind, and I started to think about, Bible stories and how they don't jive with science and the physical world that we know. And then I became what I would call skeptical. Okay.
Gotcha.
And then I had a transformation when my wife got sick, and I told you a little bit about that story. And I just said, Jesus, if you're there, show yourself. And I had all of these signs, which is a long story.
Oh, I hear you.
So my question or questions to you is, you were on kind of a set path in your life and everything was plugging along. You had your purpose, you did your stuff, and then you fell off your purpose. Was that because you had a loss of focusing on your faith? In other words, when you started drinking, did you not rely on your prayer and your faith, and that contributed to you derailing? In other words,
did I lose? No, I didn't. I don't think I lost faith. It was just a avenue I went down. It was part of God's plan for my life. That's when I realized totally now. I had to go through those 8 or 9 years, or I wouldn't be where I'm at today. It was all part of God's jigsaw puzzle of my life. But one heck of a picture and one little dark section. But I needed that. If I wouldn't have had that time period of my life, I wouldn't be directing this choir today. I wouldn't be playing in this church. I just wouldn't have this incredible adventure right now. But I didn't lose faith. But I just ignored it. You talk about things.
So that's an answer to my question. Actually, you ignored it when you stopped focusing on it. You could say you have it, but when you don't practice it,
exactly. And when you talk about moments of questioning, there are times I do question, and I say there's times that things happen in our lives, and we say, "Oh, what a coincidence." Well, maybe occasionally it's a coincidence, but so many times it's God answering a prayer or doing something in our lives. I often talk about the Holy Spirit doing some amazing things in my life. I said, "Oh, thank you, God, what you just did." That wasn't by chance.
I agree. So with my engineering mind, I could fashion scenarios that I would say this was just pure coincidence.
Right.
But then with the restoration of faith, I'm going the other way now, and that
Right.
is there's really no coincidences.
Right.
Everything happens for a reason. It's
Exactly.
all part of a divine
Yes.
fabric that we're all
Yes.
part of, right?
Oh, absolutely.
So,
Everything happens for a reason.
yeah. And so this is something I ponder too, and I want to get your input on it. Most of us are trying to search for our purpose in life. What are we? Who are we? What am I here for? And a lot of times, people don't come to that conclusion. They don't know what their purpose
You're
is.
right.
And then my question to you is, once we know what our purpose is, do we sometimes not fulfill that purpose anyway? We know what our purpose is, but then we don't get to that. We don't pursue it.
I think you're right. Not everybody, hopefully I did fulfill the purpose. In fact, I know I did. Yeah, not everybody does. And not everybody, like I said, figures out what their purpose is. They just go through life and exist, which is kind of sad because they miss out on the fulfillment and joy of having a purpose. But not everybody will fulfill it. Some may ignore and realize, oh, maybe I should be doing this, but no, I don't think I'm going to.
Have you ever, I'm sure you have heard the saying that God doesn't give you more than you can handle?
Correct.
Do you believe that?
I generally do, yeah.
Okay, so my engineering mind, I've thought through that for a long time, and I used to say it's not true because sometimes life overwhelms people and they don't make it. My mom died of a heroin overdose. Yeah, so I was thinking about it a lot, and I thought that's a BS saying. God doesn't give you more than you can handle because some people, life overwhelms them.
That's true.
But then I thought the caveat to that is you have to believe in God and have faith in God.
Yeah.
And if you do, then He doesn't give you ever more than you can handle. He may challenge you and might be at the cusp like you. So that's the caveat to me. He never gives you more than you can handle, provided you believe in Him, right?
True.
So
True.
that's one of my little conclusions. You and I had a little discussion about kindness, and if you don't mind to tell just a little story of kindness that you shared with me, how simple it is and how beautiful.
I would do, one thing I did in my classroom, which you probably couldn't do today. Good old days when you had a blackboard with erasers and chalk. Oh, I love it. You get chalk all over your pants. I would put on the top of the chalkboard a little saying for the week, and I called it an RAOK, R-A, Random Act of Kindness. And I would tell the students, which is, you could say it was preaching, and you couldn't do it today, is do something nice during the week. At least one thing. Open a door for somebody. Greet somebody. Ask somebody how they are. And don't just hear them, listen to them. That was another thing with hearing and listening. But the kindness thing, I've had more fun. I'll give another example. Christmas time. I since I'm single, I don't have a lot of presents to give out except family and some friends. So I took some envelopes. I did this for a couple of years, just white envelopes, and first year I put 10s in them. I think the last year I put 20s, and I did about 5 envelopes. And I would keep them in my pocket or in the car to give out to somebody at random.
I love it.
There's an old TV show, The Millionaire, long time ago, where he gave away $1 million. Well, I remember I did one in Meyer. We were going along, and some lady was just something, I don't know, triggered me. I said, here, ma'am, here's an envelope for you. Merry Christmas. And I went on my way. I did that in a gas station. Oh, I did it in Big Lots. And here's a cool one, Frank. About the next day, there was a post on Facebook. And I gave it to the cashier. She was having a tough time. Just randomly said, here, Merry Christmas. Don't open it till after I leave. And she posted the next day on Facebook that this gentleman, this kind of a crazy gentleman, came in and bought something and gave me this envelope. And she said, you won't believe how much I needed that money that day for his family or something. And it was like God sent this to me or an angel. We never know when we're going to be used as a human angel, any of us. And that was just a fun thing to do, just random again. Did the same thing today in Walmart the other day. Frail lady was in her little coin purse, the little clip on, and getting some coins out and struggling. And I took out some 20 or whatever, and gave it to the cashier. Here, I'm going to pay your bill. And the lady turned around once the cashier told her, and had this smile and almost tears. And it makes you feel so good. We get more out of the giving than the person that is the givee or whatever. And if we all in this world did a kindness, one little kindness a day, my gosh, it would maybe start to spread. It has to start somewhere.
I agree.
The grassroots level. Starts with you and me.
Yeah, we talked about this before we started the podcast today. Once you learn that any act of kindness, you get like way more rate of return than you're giving the person.
Absolutely.
It's like cheating life, right? It's like life actually becomes much more joyful.
Oh, absolutely.
I have to share this story with you. My Aunt Rose was instrumental in raising me. She's still alive. She's 92.
That's amazing.
And when I was a little boy, she'd take me on the L train to downtown, and we walked
the L, yeah,
Michigan Avenue and go into Marshall Fields and stuff, and I'd be holding her hand. And we were walking down a busy Chicago street, and there was an older lady, and she was sitting on the sidewalk kind of curled up in a ball like this with her eyes closed. And my aunt stopped, and she reached into her purse, and she grabbed some money. And she grabbed the lady's hand because her hands were like this. Right. And she turned it and she put the money in and folded her hand closed.
Around the money.
And then we started walking again. And the lady didn't say anything and my aunt didn't say anything. And I said, Aunt Rose, why did you do that? That person didn't even ask for the money. And she goes, she needed it. So that's where I learned my kindness from. I get a little teary-eyed when I tell the story. It's in my book too. I love your idea of putting money in envelopes like that and just having them at the ready.
Never know.
I told you the story around Christmas time. The Salvation Army guy was out in the freezing cold, ringing the bell.
This is good.
And I gave him a sack of change from my car. And then I went in, I bought him a McDonald's gift card. And it was $100 I spent on the card. And I handed it to him. I go, here, let me buy you lunch. And he didn't know what the amount was.
Right.
And I left. And then 2 weeks later, he kind of recognized me. And he's like, you look familiar to me. And I said, did someone give you a McDonald's gift card a couple weeks ago? He said, oh, yeah, that was you. And he talked about how he had his grandkids over and he described the whole meal like it was a Thanksgiving dinner, and then he hugged me and stuff like that. And I mean,
there's a case, Frank, where you are the human angel.
Right.
And God was using us, had a purpose. And that's not a random thing that you happen to do that.
And I'll share one with you that just happened to me. It all came together yesterday. I'm very big on thanking veterans.
Oh, yes.
So when I see them, I shake their hand. If they want to tell their stories, I will sit and listen.
Absolutely.
I've had some veterans on my podcast, and I wrote about them in my book. I have a chapter called Freedom and Veterans. Okay. So I ordered a bunch of my books, and I put them in a clear plastic 1-gallon bag, and I have a note that I typed up, and it says, thank you for serving our country and protecting our freedom. You represent the best of us and why I'm a proud American. Thank you for your service. And, here's a copy of my book. Please go to chapter 9. It's about you and how much gratitude I have for you. And I put my name and information on there, and I said, I have a podcast if you ever want to be on and tell your story. Oh, wow. And so when I'm in the parking lots and I see the veteran license plates, I will leave the baggie on their windshield. Oh my gosh. So, and I was here yesterday with Josh and Ricky, and my phone rang. I didn't recognize the number, and I didn't answer it. And it was a veteran. He said, my wife was at the grocery store. She found your book on top of the windshield, and he said, thank you. And he goes, I just got my disability approval from the VA, which is good. He gets a check now every month for the rest of his life. And he goes, the book just made it all, but it was perfect timing, and thank you. So I just love doing stuff like that.
Again, a purpose, and it doesn't happen by chance.
So now tell me about, tell me/us the viewers about AA and what you learned and all the stuff that they kind of try to instill.
AA started, of course, when I went to rehab, and I'll never forget the first meeting we went to, and it was in the basement of a church. And there were quite a few guys there. I think it was in Hancock anyway, or Calumet. And that first meeting, when we go around, you announce who you are. And I said, my name is Dave, and I'm an alcoholic. And it was like a large weight had been lifted. I'd never said that. I'd never admitted to myself that I was an alcoholic. And of course, many years ago, it was you would be looked down upon as he's an alcoholic. He's just a bum, no good for nothing, whatever. And I think today we have a lot better view of people that are alcoholics. It is a disease, as we see it, and it does often happen by choice, or it might run in the family. But what occurred then to me was that after that first meeting, as part of our rehab thing, AA. Then when I came back to Rudyard, I would go to the local chapter. I'm a treasurer, and I attend most meetings. I'll chair meetings, and it's another family. We're all in the same boat, but just sitting in different places, and we all have a story to tell, and all walks of life. That's the other thing. It doesn't hit just someone that's poor and down and out. It can hit the professional. It can hit a sport. It can hit anybody, and that's a family that gives support to one another. And I've had a chance to tell my story to some other AA groups. Frank, one of the most humbling ones was I had a chance to tell my AA story to the high school where I once was a teacher.
How about that?
I got asked by the phys ed teacher, would I come in and talk to her classes? I said, sure. Part of my purpose in life. That's why I'm sober.
And that's no accident. That just
no
happened.
accident. Mm-hmm. So I go in, Frank, and the classroom is filled. I have my little cards because I need cheat sheets so I can remember everything. I said, first thing, my name's Dave, and I'm an alcoholic. Low voice. I said, we make choices constantly, thousands of them every day. Right now, you have choices. People, you have a choice to do. You can choose to hear what I have to say, or you can choose to listen to what I have to say. Your choice. I hope you make the right decision. I hope I make it worth your while. And I went through my story and said, yeah, I went to this school. I was born in this community. I went to this school. I sat in some of these same chairs as you. I was a teacher here. I'm an alcoholic now. Not because I wanted to be, but I made some bad choices. And I said a couple things, that there's good in each and every one of you here in this classroom. And I would look at me that there's good in each and every one of you. And life is also a battle between good and evil. There's an angel on this shoulder, and there's a devil on this shoulder. You have to watch out which one's going to win, kind of. And it's a battle. But there's the good in you. And if you have parents, for example, that are maybe alcoholic or into drugs, and you are treated badly, that's not your true parent. It's a Jekyll and Hyde thing. It's that battle again. But keep in mind again that you have a purpose, and there's good in each and every one of you. You could hear a pin drop, Frank. They were so respectful and so quiet, and I just was so lucky to talk to them. And one of the most incredible things that happened, we were waiting for the bell to ring. Some of us were standing by the door. And this young man, I think he was a sophomore, came up to me, put out his hand, shake my hand, and he said, thank you.
Wow.
I helped one person.
He might have been struggling with a parent who had the same thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. We all have a story. We don't know what goes on. Mm-hmm. We all have demons. Mm-hmm. We all have demons. I don't care who you are. And maybe I helped him. Who knows? So
this thing that they encourage you to say, my name is Dave, and I'm an alcoholic, is that an accountability principle? Are they saying the start of healing is to take accountability?
To accept, right, who we are. And even that means you don't have to say that, your name, and say that. But once I said it, I knew I confronted and admitted to myself what I was, what I had become. And that's, again, my first step, and you go through the 12 steps. If you practice the 12 steps, of course, admit that you're an alcoholic and cannot do this by yourself. And I wish I had the 12 steps memorized, but I don't. I know there's one.
What are some of the ones that stick out to you?
Well, accept the fact that we are helpless and we need a higher power. There's one to make accountability and do an inventory of our lives. One of the most, the best one, or most challenging and emotional one, is to make amends. And in front of another person, I did it in front of a pastor. And you basically kind of spill your guts out of everything in your life and make amends. And that was very emotional. And then another one, like says, to make amends to people that you've wronged. And I know I started right away. And if you make amends, then it's up to the person that you made the amends to whether to accept your apology or not. If they don't, well, it balls in their court. You've done your share. I've apologized. I've made amends. Hopefully, and everybody accepted. Everybody was so understanding that in my life, from my friends to the church families to people wanted to hear my story. They were most supportive.
So we're gonna cover a lot of this stuff here because I want your opinion on the amends part, but I want to backpedal a little bit about, you said, alcoholism is a disease. Okay,
generally believe it's a disease.
So this is one of the things that I've struggled with, that I don't agree with, because you even yourself have talked about you made a lot of bad choices.
Correct.
And the choices create a behavior, and the longer you behave that way, the more it becomes ingrained in you.
That's true.
And is it a disease, or is the disease that you made bad choices,
right,
or is the disease alcoholism itself?
That's a good question. Yeah. We say it's a disease, and I'm not sure either whether it is or not. And maybe sometimes it is. Maybe it's in my genes. It could be, right? Yeah, it could be runs in the genes in the family. I'm sure I had some alcoholics. I can think of maybe a few in the family. Then you can say, well, it runs in the family. But then I also agree with you where it was my choices. And continuing to make those bad choices just made it worse and worse until it became a lifestyle.
So I'm almost overzealous about the accountability principle. And I've had debates with my friends who are actual therapists. And
Right.
Therapy, to me, a lot of it it's wizardry. It's like, I'd like to start with accountability. And this is what I told my therapist friend. Every decision we've ever made in our life, and we make tons of them. Did I turn left? Did I turn right? What did I eat for lunch?
Right.
Big decisions. Where did I go to school? Who did I choose as a mate, etc. All of those decisions we've made brought us to be right here, right now at this point in time.
That's true.
We have steered our ship here. My argument is, even if a piano falls on my head, I have accountability in that, because where were my eyes? Did I not have situational awareness? Did I not hear the piano? Was I
responsible?
Right. So, and my therapist friend's like, well, that's ridiculous. Some things are out of your control. I'm like, that might be true, but it's better to err on my side, because then you can learn from everything that happens to you. What could I have done better? Right. So, and then you live and learn at a higher rate of speed. And my argument is, we don't all even live and learn, because people, there's old people that I know that they're bitter and they hate everybody and they hate life. I'm like, man, you won already. You should be bathed in gratitude, and they're not. So I start everything with that accountability. And then I told you that my mother passed away from a heroin overdose when I was a teenager. And it took me 2 decades to reconcile it, because I was really latching onto this choice principle. Okay. You made all these bad choices. And my mother was a bad alcoholic to start. And I will tell you from my personal experience, alcoholism takes a bigger toll on the people around the alcoholic than the drugs do,
Yeah.
because drugs, you go into yourself. The alcoholism it can really affect others.
Right.
And maybe that's anecdotal, but it took me a long time to reconcile her, because I was latching onto this choice and accountability, and you made all of these bad choices and you missed out on me becoming successful, me getting married, me having children. You missed it all.
Right.
And I was so pissed at her and unforgiving. And then one day my light bulb went on and I'm like, dumbass, she did have choices up to a certain point. And then when she became an addict, an alcoholic and or a drug addict, that's when your choices go away.
Yeah.
The chemistry, everything else takes over your choices. You're no longer making choices, right?
You're kind of back in neutral.
Right. So so then I was able to forgive her, and forgiveness is actually a super huge part of living our best life. Because somebody said this, if you don't forgive somebody, that's like you taking poison to hurt them, right?
You're right.
So, and I wanted to talk to you about this amends thing, and I'm going to tell you a story, and I want to get your opinion on it, because I might have handled this the wrong way. I was on the trading floor as a broker for many years, very competitive, a lot of backstabbing, a lot of undermined things would go on. I was a small broker. I only had a few guys working for me. We were like a little team of Navy SEALs. We did business honorably. We didn't bribe anybody. We didn't play the game.
Right.
The exchange was by and large run by the mafia, and they tried to take our spot and move us around and whatever. It was interesting. So we maintained our integrity. We did business the way we did it. And that's why I was one of the smallest guys down there. I didn't play the game.
You did it honorably.
There was a gentleman. He was just known for being, I'll just say it, a scumbag. He was a scumbag. And he would do all these underhanded things to try and get business, all right? The pit, the trading floor is shaped like the Coliseum, and all the trades happen here, and all the guys up here are the ones shooting the business into the pit, and you try and make customers out of all these guys here, okay? You befriend them, you have your clerks watch them and try to get, give them information and stuff, and so it's an interesting life. So he had a nice career, and now the trading floor, all the volume in the trading pits was going to the computer platform. So the pits were becoming ghost towns. There was no transactional volume in the pits. And I knew the writing on the wall, like, we're done once the computer system took hold. So I was already gearing up to, like, my career's over. And it happened overnight. Like, my best month as a broker was in May of 2004, and I walked off the floor in August of 2004 forever. Like, it just died that fast. Yeah. So this gentleman who has done some diabolical things to me and my team, he said, hey, could I talk to you? So the floor was divided into parts depending on which futures it was. So we walked over to the currencies, and the currencies were dead. The currencies were like British pound, Japanese yen, whatever, and there was not one single body in the entire quadrant. Nobody on the phone, nobody in the pit. It was done, okay? So we walk over there, and he says to me, he goes, first of all, I have to tell you, I have the greatest respect for you and your team. You guys are hardworking. Nobody did it better than you. And I'd say I have a lot of respect for you. And I said, okay. And he says, I'm in the 12-step program, and one of the things we have to do is make amends with people that we've hurt.
Right. Yep.
And he said, I got a lot of your business by telling bad stories about you, falsehoods, whatever. I lied about you to get your business. And, I just wanted to say I'm sorry. And I said, apology not accepted. I said, dude, and I waved my hands like this. I go, the game is over. It's over. You took food out of my mouth and the mouth of my guys. And now that the game's over, you can't make that up to me. So you're barking up the wrong tree. And I said, however, if you want to go up to the people that you lied to about me and my presence and tell them what you just told me, we could start there. How does that sound? And he crumbled. And I said, hey man, I wish you well, but I don't forgive you. And I walked away. It hasn't eaten me up, and I don't regret doing that. But from your perspective, with him, did he do enough with that making amends?
He may not have. He may not have taken it all the way. If he made amends to you, but not to the people that worked with you, is that the example?
Well, it wasn't not only them, it was the people he lied to about me that actually would be my customers,
Right.
but he pulled them away by lying about me and my team, right? I was telling him, make amends to me in front of them,
In front of them.
the people that whose business you stole, and say, I lied about this guy. He was great and his team was great, and I'm sorry. That would be, to me, that would be legit then.
Would that have been possible for him to do that?
It would have been possible, yeah. Or even at a bare minimum, he could have assembled my whole team.
Right.
He could say, can I talk
There
to
we
you
go.
and your team?
Yeah.
And then see what
That
they
would
had.
make more sense, yeah. Because you can't eventually apologize to every single person that you may have offended in some way that I can think of, right? But I would see that would make sense to me of the group to do that. Now, he maybe thought he'd done enough, but then you thought that he didn't. So that's interesting.
Yeah, and
But I would agree with you that a group thing would make more sense.
and I didn't, I didn't drink poison to hurt him.
No,
Like I did
right.
have the unforgiveness, and I don't want to say I haven't forgiven him. I have, but I won't forget. And I learned a lot of valuable lessons from him. Right. So, and that's the darkness of the world. No matter who you are and how great you are, there's going to be people really trying to hurt you.
Oh, absolutely.
And the greatest example of that is Jesus, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not that any of us can compare it, but he was perfect. And look what they did to him.
Look what they did to
so,
him.
I wanted to share that with you with that story. I always
good one.
often wonder what happened to that guy.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a great con man. He'll always survive.
Was he sincere, do you think?
That's a really good question.
Yeah. If he was sincere, then that's the most important thing. But if he just did it because he was supposed to do it and he didn't mean it, well then it's shallow.
That's a really good question. I wonder if he was. I probably wouldn't have even let myself accept that while I was in the moment, just because he was such a BSer.
Right.
You never believed anything he said. So I would already had my my force field up.
You're right, exactly.
So,
Exactly.
but that's so interesting. I'm going to talk to my guys about that and see if they thought he was sincere.
Keep me posted.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Well, you mentioned accountability earlier, and I think of that as so much that how my day goes, I'm responsible for it. If I want to have a good day or a bad day, it's my choice. I can blame the outside environment or the people around me a little bit, but the bottom line is it's my choice, and I have to be accountable also for my actions. So much of that nowadays, I believe, we can always blame somebody else. Oh, no, wait a minute. I'm responsible for it. Take responsibility for my actions, not blaming others. And again, like I said, how my day goes or whatever, it's my choice. And making those good choices will give hopefully good results.
I totally agree with that. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the good and evil, where obviously the world has always been embroiled in the fight between good and evil.
Yeah.
And then we have our own inner battle of good and evil, which you mentioned. I contend that we do have a dark side in us, and we do have a light side in us. And the dark side I call the Sith Lord. Are you familiar with Star Wars?
Not really, although I like sci-fi.
The Sith Lords represent the evil,
Okay.
and the Jedis represent the good. And the Sith Lords are more powerful than the Jedi, which is just like we talked about earlier before we started. I believe evil predominantly controls the world because evil men have no boundaries where good men do.
Right.
So an evil man has more weaponry, we'll say. Right. So I believe we all have a Sith Lord inside of us. This Lord that is capable of, a great devastating forces,
Doing
right?
bad things. Yeah.
But I think that part of the success in life is that we recognize we have this darkness in us, and to keep that bad guy under control. But occasionally we need that bad guy, right? We have to tap into that destructive warrior, we'll say, sometimes for survival. Mm-hmm. But on the same hand, that Sith Lord is the one that tells us we're not good enough, right? Mm-hmm. And can capsize our lives. So we have to silence it. It's okay to acknowledge the power that we have, but that guy's also working against us, right? And that's what I tell my sons. I've told them through the years when they were having difficulties. I'm like, we all have that little asshole in us that tells us we're not good enough, right? And you have to silence that guy. Otherwise, he'll get the best of you. Yeah. And I think we're always in that struggle.
Well, like I said, angel on this shoulder, devil on this shoulder. And sometimes he gets his claws into it a little more than the angel does. Yeah, I think it's a battle every day.
Yes. All right, we're going to shift gears a little bit because you had mentioned your mom, and your mom's passing was that the most grief that you've ever felt?
That was quite grievous, whatever, if I said that correctly. The hardest one was my dad. After my mom died, he remarried a year or two later. It was kind of interesting. The lady that he married, she didn't have a good track record. She'd already lost about 4 husbands. But he said, "Okay, Dad, if you want to try, okay." And it was okay for a year or two. And then it wasn't so bad. It wasn't so good, I should say. But I got a call from the stepmom, and she said, you want to maybe get down here. It was in Alpena. He was in the hospital. She said, he's not doing well. He may not make it. And I had back then a really hot car, a Pinto station wagon, which rusted out because it was made out of Japanese beer cans. I think that's what I used to say.
That's hilarious.
He had gone in for gallbladder surgery, and she didn't tell any of us 3 brothers, which really made us mad after the fact. She said, "Well, I didn't think it was going to be, it was just a simple operation. I didn't think you guys needed to know." So there was some friction between us, 3 brothers and her. Anyway, I got in the little Pinto station wagon and drove as fast as I could in that little hot car down to Alpena, and I get down to the hospital. It's about 8 o'clock at night or so. I go in, and it's pretty empty, and I find a nurse right away, and I said, "Is Mr. Erfourth, Cecil Erfourth, still alive?" And she says, "No, he's not. He's passed away." And I started to cry uncontrollably. And she was a wonderful nurse, and she took me back into the nurses' station, so I was not just out there in the hallway area. So to give me a chance to gather my wits, she was very nice to me. And I said, after crying, I said, "I need to see him. I need to see him, my dad." And she said, "Well, he's in the morgue, and he's got still tubes in his body." I said, "I still need to see him." And we went down to the morgue, and I don't remember if he's in a thing or not. Well, he's probably, I think he was on a table, as I recall, because he just passed away. She uncovered him, and sure, he had some tubes in his nose and stuff, and maybe in his laryngectomy place. And I leaned over and I gave him a kiss on the forehead. I said, "I'm sorry, Dad, I didn't make it in time." That was pretty tough, that I didn't make it in time. Mm-hmm. But I gave him a kiss, and he knows that I loved him. Mm-hmm. I had to do that. So we talked about, and we'll talk about it again. You're going through the grieving process now. Your father's gone. And first of all, I contend this because I lost my mom. When one of your parents dies, a little part of you dies with them that you never get back. Absolutely. Because they're so ingrained into your fabric. It's like a hole gets burned in your fabric. And you said something really brilliant to me about grieving. You're going through the grieving process, and everybody comes to your side. And I'm so sorry for your loss. Yeah, if you ever want to talk, food and the church stuff, and and then what? Then what happens? Then they're all gone, and it finally hits you. Then because doing all that other stuff. You have to make decisions about the service and this and that. You cremate it. And it's a blur. And it's a blur of a couple of days, and then boom, they're gone, and you're in the house. And like I'm again single, and there's nobody there. And a few people maybe call, but yeah, they have lives to lead too. I have to remember that. It's not all about me at that point. Although it seems that's how I was acting. Yeah, that's the hardest part. And then it really hits you. They're gone. But I think they're looking down on us.
Yeah.
And I think my folks are proud of me and what I've done. Sure they are. Yeah. But you go through that process then of the loss, and it's so tough on you. If you loved your parents, and if you
talked about that's a blessing in itself.
Absolutely, because not everybody has parents that love them, etc., and vice versa. It is gradually replaced with wonderful memories. I have one other wonderful memory I remember involved both my parents. I grew up in a trailer. I wasn't not the most exciting place to live, but it was
What do you
nice.
mean a trailer? A mobile home?
Mobile home, yeah. Back
Okay.
it was a trailer.
Was it a double wide or was it
No,
oh,
just
wow.
a whole 55 feet long, and I had the smallest closet in my little bedroom. And
wow.
so when I built the house, I had to have a huge closet, but then
And one little bathroom, right?
one little bathroom, I think, yeah. And a little trailer, sliding doors. But it was kept clean, and we were having a card party or something in the kitchen, and Mom had made 2 pies. One was maybe a lemon meringue, and one was a chocolate pie. And I don't know how we got to joking around and stuff, and we ended up having a pie fight a little bit. It's just not quite like the Stooges, but I remember Mom threw a piece of pie at Dad, joking around. It was chocolate cream, thank goodness, and not the good lemon meringue. And then he swatted it with a broom. We had to clean up a little bit, but I'll never forget that memory, obviously. And another memory when we kidnapped Dad for the sauna. And Finlanders love saunas, and that's how you pronounce it, sauna. And he was in the sauna with us. And then we sent, I don't know how one of us went in. We said, we've kidnapped Dad, Mom. We're not going to let him go till you bring us some more beer. Back in those days. So little things like that. And wonderful memories gradually replace the sorrow.
Yes.
And then you know that they are watching over us.
Yes.
Looking down on us.
Have you ever had a sign where you felt like that was them?
No, I haven't. I haven't exactly had anything in particular that I can say, or a moment where I can say, no, I haven't. I can't think of
So I didn't believe in this stuff because I had this engineering mind, right? Like, no, this doesn't happen.
Exactly, no.
You know, one happened with my friend Mike, but that's too long of a story. But so Dorothy had passed, and I visit my Aunt Rose every Friday. Right. She's my angel on earth, who I told you about.
Yep.
And she's inspired my book, the Warrior book. She is the greatest warrior I've ever known, and she's in the book. Yes, so I finally got my copies of the book. And
it's a great book, by the way, folks.
Thank you. I brought her her copy, and we sit, kind of 10 feet from each other in the room. And I was reading the chapter about her. Mm-hmm. And she was going, "Oh, I'm not that great." I go, "Look, this really happened."
Yes.
And the stuff that I wrote about you before I was born came right out of your mouth. I was just dictating. So yes, you were all this. And the story about the giving the lady the change on the street and all that. So she goes, "Can I look at the book?" So I walked it over to her, and she was flipping through the pages, and her little mouth was moving, and I took a couple pictures of her. But every time I visit her, I put on the 1970s music channel on cable.
Oh, okay.
Because I like 70s music, because that's what I grew up with. So a song comes on by an artist named Gino Vanelli, who was my mother's favorite artist.
Really?
Okay? And nothing jolts me into her memory more than hearing one of his songs. So I'm sitting there on the couch while my aunt's reading the book, and I'm doing one of these, and I'm just thinking about good memories of my mom, just like the ones you shared with me about your family. And I was smiling, and then I said to myself, I wonder if my wife met my mother. And I said, well, what would that look like? Does my 37-year-old mom meet my 60-year-old wife? I was pondering like what that looks like in heaven, if at all. And And I was smiling and really thinking through it. And then I pointed to the TV set and I said to myself, don't you dare play Still the One. Still the One was my wife's ringtone for me, and it was our song. And that dang song came on right after this Gino Vanelli song. And I preempted it by saying, don't you dare, because I would take that as a sign, and boom, it happened. So I just looked out the window and I pointed up at the sun. I'm like, yeah, that had to be. Yeah, what are the odds that could happen like that? So I've had a few of those things happen, which is pretty cool.
I see that's just not by chance.
No, I don't think so.
I agree with you. Yeah.
All right, my friend. Awesome. Well, we've had a really good time here. You're 76 years old.
Happy to be above ground.
Yes, and that's how I look at it too.
You got to keep moving.
You know, when I wake up in the morning, I don't say, Lord, thank you for another day, because that even to me is presumptuous.
Exactly.
I say, thank you for letting me see another sunrise.
Yes.
Right?
Nothing is promised. And I wrote a note here. I said, life is a journey. We all make this journey, but we only get one chance at it. So do things, live life, be kind, try to find your purpose, try to make a difference in the world, even if it's a little difference.
Mm-hmm. I agree. That's why we're on the same page.
Enjoy the journey.
Yes.
Yes.
That's a lot of those books say, live in the present. Mm-hmm. That's the key, to be able to live in the present moment.
One day at a time.
Which is very hard for us to do. And I'll just share one last story with you, and then I'm going to ask you one last question. I had a podcast with my dear friend. She's just a badass in every way. She's a life coach, and she came on and told her story, and she was addicted to cocaine and alcohol. She should have been on the Olympic team for swimming. She had a water skiing accident. She just shared her whole story. And then we got to the point where she was talking about her success as a life coach and whatever. And she said, you have to live in the present. That's the whole key. You have to embrace the present. And I asked her this question, which is I'm going to ask you when we're done here. I said, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the best, how happy and fulfilled are you? And she goes, I'm an 8. And I said, well, what would make it a 10? And she said, I'm not where I want to be financially. I want my business to grow, da-da-da-da-da. And I didn't say a word. And I just kept looking at her, and she started doing this. She goes, wait a minute. Let me rethink that. And then I laughed at her. She goes, why are you laughing? I go, you just got through telling me you have to master living in the present, but your present's only an 8 because of something that hasn't happened in the future. Are you really living in the present? Right? So she's like, And I said, do you know what redlining is? And she said, no. I go, in your car, you have a gauge where if you stomp on the gas pedal, that needle goes into the red line. Right. That is where your engine is operating at its capacity. Right. Okay. I go, but as human beings, redlining would be like you're an accomplished swimmer and you're in a big swim meet and you're in the last 5 yards and you're looking as you're breathing and your opponent is one hand ahead of you and you have to dig down for everything you have. That's a red line. Right. And I said, it's like weightlifting, pushing through a max, being in a race, whatever. And she goes, I'm redlining all the time. I go, so your life is She goes, it's a 10. She goes, thank you. I'm taking that away. So Dave, my friend, I'm going to ask you this final question on a scale of 1 to 10. 10 being the best and most fulfilled.
I would say a 9, only because my life is not perfect. And 10 is perfect.
Does it need to be perfect?
It never will be perfect.
So your life could never be a 10 then?
Because I'm a human.
Interesting.
And there's always those battles.
Well, my friend, I'm a 10. So between you and I, we average out to a 9.5.
Okay, 9.9.
That's not too bad. Anyway, dear friend,
thank you.
Thank you for coming on. It was awesome. Thank you for sharing your story. I know it's going to help a lot of people. At the end of the day, we're all human and we're a product of our choices, and the kindness part is so key.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
It's been an honor.
Thank you, everybody, for joining the Warrior Podcast. We're on location in Trout Lake. We'll see you at our next podcast. And remember, there's a warrior inside us all. Take care of everybody. All right, sorry, we're back. Dave wanted to tell one outstanding joke before we leave.
Frank, I have a P.S. to my little story. What happens when a piano falls down a mine shaft? You know?
I do not.
You get A flat minor. Ba-dum-bum. I'll go to my room now.
That is all. All right, thank you guys. Take care.